Hi, Jonathan Trago, the Seconds Out with Adam Smith, head of Sky Sports Boxing. How are we doing, Adam?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Obviously, your initial reaction to the press conference.
Well, I think it's a fantastic bill and a terrific fight, isn't it? I mean, cleverly Bellew. It's just got everything. It's you mix all the ingredients in the pot. I think Froch Groves sort of showed us what the British public, the casuals, want to see. They want to see grudge matches. They want to see personalities. They want to see fights that they don't know the outcome to. And I think we had that, and we've had that for the last year or two. I think Froch and Kester was a good one as well. But there's something about a domestic dust-up, isn't there? In an all-British clash. Nathan Cleverly coming up from Wales again. He did it once. Can he do it again? Things have changed in the last 3 years. Tony Bellew's maybe a more natural cruiserweight. He hits hard. He's so confident. Can he turn it around, or will it be, as Nathan says, a case of repeat? I think it's a fascinating one because they don't like each other, and we don't know who's going to win.
And what did you make of it? It's the first time I've heard certain allegations been mentioned in that press conference. Obviously, Tony trying to push a few buttons there. Do you think it's maybe a bit much when personal kind of comments are made, or do you think it's just the heat?
Probably, yeah. I think you've got to, I suppose. I don't know backgrounds. I don't want to talk about backgrounds. That's between them. But at the end of the day, if Tony's using tactics, dirty tricks, whatever, to get under his skin, then providing Nathan doesn't react, then that's the important thing. But I'd rather not have that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you as well, talking about the sort of numbers, if we use the latest comparable of obviously the Froch Groves rematch, and obviously that was a pay-per-view, how much, figures-wise, how much was that, did it sell in terms of pay-per-view?
Well, Froch Groves did very well, extremely well.
Are you allowed to specify numbers?
No, I don't know the number. I don't know the exact number, but
in the region.
But we did well. We did extremely well, and I think that it was a fight with 80,000 people at Wembley that was always going to do great business, because I think because the rematch was what everybody wanted to see. The controversial nature of the first fight's finish.
Yeah.
I think the fact that a lot of people forget was what a great, thunderous fight it was before Howard Foster stepped in. I personally think that Carl Froch would have won the fight had it gone on another 30 seconds, a minute, whatever. George Groves got his rematch, and I think for what he put into that first fight, he deserved a rematch. Yeah. Everybody wanted to see it. And I think because, as I said, it had that feeling of personalities that don't like each other, and the not knowing who's going to win made people draw to it. And I think that shows that when there's obviously a big enough story, when there's characters in it, the casual fans can lock on, and the trade fans obviously want to see fights that they don't know who's going to win either. So I think it was just one of those things that worked, and Wembley works, and I'd like to go back there, on maybe an annual basis, or certainly have a big show outdoors every year, because I think the fans will turn up. You can see that here. This was sold out in hours. Cleverly Bellew at the Echo. And if you put Froch and De Gale on, if you put Groves and De Gale on again, if you Khan and Brook, these sort of fights, Quigg and Frampton, you're going to get outdoor arenas again. And I think that's terrific.
And of all the fights you mentioned there, which do you think would be big enough to head a Wembley card?
Khan and Brook. That's the fight I really want to see. I mean, I don't know what's happening with Amir's fighting Devon Alexander. I don't know whether he's going to get the Mayweather fight in May. There's these rumours again of Pacquiao. I don't believe that because of what's happened in the past. Maybe they will get it made at some point. Maybe Mayweather will choose someone else, a Danny Garcia or a Thurman. Who knows? It seems to be his decision.
Yeah.
If Khan beats Alexander, maybe he'll fight him in May, in which case that's a huge fight. It's a huge fight for Britain, a huge fight for the world. But it's not a fight I think will happen at Wembley, so I think it will happen in the States. But with Amir Khan and Kell Brook, providing Kell gets back fine from what happened to him in the summer, looks like he's going to defend his title in the early part of the year, and then maybe by the spring, or summer, we can get Khan and Brook in the ring. I'd love to see that, and I think Khan and Brook is exactly the sort of fight that, whether it's Wembley or Old Trafford or another big stadium, that'll be good. And I've also got on record that I'm a Liverpool fan, and I love to see a big event at Anfield, and I think that maybe if you've got David Price and Anthony Joshua in a ring, and a few of the Smith brothers, and who knows, maybe Bellew Cleverly 3, we could do it all at Anfield. I'm not sure Tony would be too happy about that, but I will be.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I suppose the initial question I wanted to ask, because I just wanted to use it as comparatively, because obviously when this car was announced that it was pay-per-view, initially there was a few grumblings on Twitter, people saying, is it worthy of being a pay-per-view event? Obviously as the card has progressively filled up, and it's a very stacked card now, that the grumblings have decreased by the week. But I just wanted to ask comparatively how you think it will perform against something like Frochgrove's rematch, which was massive.
But I think the Frochgrove's rematch was a sort
unique.
Was unique. I think that, you know, I certainly haven't in 20 years of working at Sky seen an event like that. You know, we've had Bruno McCall, we've had Hatton Hugh, we've had Lewis Tyson, we've had Lewis Holyfield, we've had, you know, David Hay and Klitschko. We've had huge fights.
Yeah.
But there's something different about that. 80,000 at Wembley, and it just caught the imagination at the right time, I think. So I think it's very difficult to compare anything to that, really.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, this is a great event on Saturday night. It's a good top of the bill with Bellew and Cleverly. It's a 50-50 fight. Yeah. And it's got a terrific card as well. You know, you look at the fighters on it: Anthony Joshua, James DeGale, George Groves. I'm so pleased that both of them decided to fight on the bill, Groves and DeGale. A couple of world titles pitched in. Callum Smith in probably the toughest fight of the night. You know, Bradley Saunders on the bill. It's a great night, and hopefully fight fans will really enjoy it.
I was going to say that then, you sort of alluded to it there, that Callum's in a real tough challenge. I mean, when you look at all obviously as Brits, we're slightly biased as a boxing fan, but if you look at all the fights on the betting, certainly the British fighters are all favourites. Even if it's only slightly, they are favourites. Who do you think, of all the fights on the undercard, who do you think's in the toughest test, shall we say? Who could make a real...
Well, I think it's difficult to judge because we don't really know a lot about the Japanese challenger to Scott Quigg. You know, he looks good, and he's come with a whole team, and okay, you know, it's expected that Quigg will deal with him. But we're not really sure about him. And the other fellow, Chacon, who's coming to fight Jamie McDonald, has come in at very short notice, and he looked very lively at the presser and in great nick. So you know, you don't know what's going to happen. We obviously assume that both of them will come through, and Quigg will fight Frampton at some point, and Jamie McDonald will have his unification. But you know, you don't know that these guys are banana skins. You know, one you know. They don't know much. They haven't seen a lot of them on tape. You know, Scott said that. Jamie said that to me as well. So we don't know about that. Yeah, but you would assume they probably come through. I like Callum Smith's fight because I've seen Sia Chlocka before 2 or 3 times, and he's really tough. So that's a very, very difficult fight. And it may be that they've got the timing wrong on that. I don't know. It's been a tough week for Callum with his nan dying, and he's had the funeral today. And it's a very hard one for a young fighter to go into. And a lot of expectation on Callum Smith's shoulders. Everyone's saying he's the next big thing. I think Callum's the sort of guy that can deal with it because he's cool and he's calm, and he's a very good fighter. So, you know, I would lean slightly towards him coming through this, but that's a really tough fight. And I think James DeGale's in a tough fight against Marco Antonio Paraban, a really hard fight. It's a fight he didn't need to take. He's managed to challenger for Carl Froch, but he wants to fight the best. I think it's a really good sign. I think James DeGale's starting to fly now. Again, I would expect him to have too much skill for Paraban, but it could be a long, hard, tough fight, and it's no gimme that. So those are the ones I'm really looking forward to. But of course, I want to see George Groves and how he comes back after Rabras, who gave him a tougher fight than any of us thought. You know, Anthony Joshua, how will he deal with stalwart Michael Sprott? You know, yes, expected to knock him out, but you know, what happens if Sprott can hang in there and take him a few rounds? We just don't know. And it's difficult matching someone like Anthony Joshua because he's blowing away, you know, all of these early oppositions. So you can't throw him in with a Fury, a Price just yet. He's not ready. But you know, you've got to just, you know, do the right fights at the right time and look at the yardstick. I think Michael Sprott's the right guy at this stage, and he'd be looking to fight in January again. So let's see what happens there. But obviously the main attraction is Bellew and Cleverly, and we all want to know what happens.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, obviously, thanks a lot for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
No problem at all. Cheers. No worries.